And everyone had them. In fact, they all had all 17. But the one that drove them all was this, they had a vivid vision for what they wanted their life to be. And it created this burning desire for success that they never lost. And when you have that kind of inner drive, that kind of vision, that kind of passion driving you, that's what creates winners out of ordinary people. And it applies to you as a leader of your business, and it applies to each and every one of your employees, because every one of us as a human being want that. And creating an organization that has that kind of passion behind it throughout all levels of the organization, that's where the power is. Now, wouldn't it be tremendous if your passion and your inner drive created that business that you wanted? And wouldn't it be tremendous if everybody you worked with, all your employees, all your customers, all saw you and saw that passion and inner drive? I mean, what kind of energy does that attract to you? Well, I think it attracts a lot. The other book is Good to Great. How many of you read Good to Great? You know, Jim Collins studied thousands of companies with his team, and he ended up with 11 companies that fit their definition of great. And they all had a thing called the hedgehog concept. Now, they didn't all call it that. Some of them called it their core competency council. Some of them called it their strategic planning council. But they all had the same thing. And there were, and I don't know if you know about it, but the hedgehog name came from an essay by Isaiah Berlin, who had the world divided into the people of the world divided to hedgehogs and foxes. And foxes are the people who see the complexity of the world, and they see it all, and they've got strategies and ideas and things to work with all those complexities. Hedgehogs, they also see the complexity of the world, and they reduce it down to one thing that they do very well. And in a hedgehog's case, it's rolling up in a ball. So every time the fox would try to sneak up a new way and find a new way to get to the hedgehog would see it come and immediately roll up in a ball, and the fox couldn't get to it. So the concept from the hedgehog concept that Collins talks about is that they have 3 circles, and these 3 circles overlap. And the 3 circles are, what are you passionate about? What are you the best in the world at? And what drives your economic engine? And companies that followed that concept didn't do anything except what fit in the center of those 3 circles. They had to be, as a company, be passionate about it, they had to be the best in the world at it, and it had to drive their economic engine in some way. Well, to me, it's right back to having that shared vision. You can't have passion without a vision. That passion and vision are the same to me. And you can't be the best in the world at anything if you're not passionate about it. You've heard a lot of times about coaches and talking about, boy, that athlete I had all the talent, more talent than more athletic talent than anybody I've ever coached, but he didn't have heart. So if you don't have the heart behind you to drive it, and that's driven by vision. And the third book that I cite a lot is First Break All the Rules. How many of you have read that? Now, I do think there's 3 books that ought to be on your shelf. Think and Grow Rich, Good to Great, and First Break All the Rules. And if you never read another business book, I think those can cover it, if you really want to build a great business. Marcus Buckingham works for Gallup, or used to work for Gallup, I think, until he became famous. He may not do that anymore. And I can't remember his co-author's name, but after Gallup interviewed 30,000 people, what they discovered was, what's it take to hire and retain good employees? And in my peer groups and in my coaching and consulting for the last 12 years, at least 50, probably more like 70% of the conversations I have with my clients around, how do I keep good employees, or how can I handle this employee situation? And what they found there were 12 things that they found that all top talent wanted to see in a company in order to stay. And 2 of them were, is the mission and purpose of my company something that when I come to work, I feel like my work is important to the world? And 2, am I allowed every day, am I given work every day that I can do that I'm best at? So it's right back to the same thing that burning vision, passion, being the best at, they're all connected. Now, vision to me is just merely imagining the ideal company and the ideal life you want, and then having an intuition about the future, or the pursuit of excellence in what you do. And it's staying open to what you want in the field of all possibilities, because we get caught up a lot in the mundane of our daily existence, and we can't see the possibilities, because we're down here sitting at this level, and you can't see the possibilities till you stand up on the chair in your life and start looking out and looking down on your life and taking a different perspective about it. And vision doesn't have to be complicated to work. One of my clients was 25 or 30 years ago, he graduated from with a PhD in clinical psychology, and he decided to take a year off with his wife and follow his avocation. Now, his avocation since he was 11 or 12 years old was growing cactus. He loved succulents. I mean, he was passionate about cactus and succulents. And he had all kinds of mutations he'd put together over the years. So he took a year off, and they took the cactus and stuff they'd been growing through his college years in their backyard, and they started putting them in the trunk of their car and selling them to nurseries around the LA area. And then that led into about 7 acres someplace in the hills of Malibu. And then they continued to sell. And he had one vision at the time. He said, you know, I'm just taking a year off. My vision for the year is I want to work next to my wife, and I want to get cactus into homes, because people should appreciate this beautiful plant. That's all I wanted to do for a year. Well, that vision over the years ended up buying a bunch of acreage in San Marcos in northern San Diego County. And now he does about $70 million a year selling cactus to Kmart and Home Depot and Target stores. And a few years ago, when he was working with me, he was starting to lose his vision and his passion. And he realized that his wife had gone home for 5 years to help raise their kids. So he said, you know, part of my original vision was she was right there next to me. It's not as much fun for me. So he talked her back into coming back in the company, and for the last 10 years, they've gone from, at that time, it was 13 million to 70 million. He's still following that same simple vision. Getting cactus into homes so people appreciate it, and working next to my wife. Yeah, not a bad thing to do. But a simple vision, and it drove a business that's now got, I don't know, 300 or 400 employees. I worked at Jenny Craig at their franchise division for 5 years, and that was an incredible experience and very powerful proof of seeing shared vision in action. At the time I was there, they'd been, in the course of 10 years, they went from 0 to 800 centers worldwide. So at the time I was there, we were opening up for 5 years, around 25 or 30 centers a month, somewhere in the United States or in Australia, and hiring employees at an incredible rate. But we all had the vision that we knew we were the best at what we did. We absolutely had a passion about, even the people in corporate office that didn't deal with the clients that we were serving. We had that same level of passion, and it was connected in everything we did. And I always felt when I worked there that I had to run to catch up. There was so much talent in that place. At every level in the organization, I was continuing to feel like, boy, I got to catch up. That talent just passing me by. But it was all driven by our vision. It was all driven originally by Sid and Jenny Craig's vision. You go to the biannual business conferences, and it felt like a religious revival meeting with everybody bowing to the icon of Jenny Craig. But it was incredibly powerful, and it couldn't have happened without them continuing to push that vision. And it's not enough, though, just to have a vision. I think you have to do a lot more. You have to model behaviors. You have to model your own behaviors every day. You have to tell the stories. You have to watch for teachable moments to tell the stories. And you got to be dramatic about it. And I think you have to look in the mirror often. Are you, every day, living your vision? Are you living the vision you're preaching? And you got to repeat it often. I tell people,